Welcome to our Election 2016 Forum organized by the League of Women Voters of Greater Las Cruces. I'm Fred Martino. Today we focus on New Mexico Senate District 38 with Democrat Mary Kay Papen and Republican Charles Wendler. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question. There will be no follow-up questions and no rebuttals, so we ask the candidates to offer their position and refrain from commenting on their opponents. The questions were submitted to the League by the public. We ask the studio audience to refrain from any noise during the forum. We'll alternate throughout the half hour, and the first response was chosen by a coin toss. I'm joined by Erica Graff Webster, past president of the League, and she has our first question.
And the first question goes to Mary Kay. Do you support physician assistants in dying? Please explain.
I haven't read legislation. I do have a friend that used it in Oregon, and her family was very happy using that. I know that we do sign not to resuscitate in the hospital, but I haven't read the legislation, but I probably think that it probably is all right to do that. But I haven't read the legislation to understand it fully.
No, I do not support physician-assisted death. I just feel like physicians, doctors, those people have taken an oath to sustain life, to keep life, and I think that would be against their oath. And I would not want to pass legislation that would put that up to them to decide. And my faith doesn't allow me to do that.
Chuck, the second question will begin with you. Do you support allowing voters to decide on the legal sale of recreational marijuana in New Mexico?
No, I don't support that. Many reasons for it. I understand that there's an impetus now to have that as a revenue source since we've had such a great shortfall. That's an easy fix, and I can understand why people would want to do that. But I cannot support that. Again, it's going to create problems for the police to enforce that. Well, everybody, even businesses, to support it. And we have enough problems supporting alcohol use or abuse, if you will. And we're just going to add more fuel to the fire, so to speak. So, no, I cannot support that.
Okay. Mary Kay?
I don't support it either. I have a grandson who's schizophrenic and bipolar, and who has used marijuana on occasion, and I see what the results of that are, so no, I do not support it.
Okay, next question. Mary Kay, how would you provide incentives, if any, to businesses to relocate in the state?
Right now, I think we do provide incentives. We've got Facebook coming in, and we give a lot of tax incentives to people coming in. We give money for them to be training their employees in JTIP, and I think to some extent that has really worked well. I'm not sure that I think it always works well. We have an awful lot of tax incentives that we're putting out there, and we need to make sure that it creates jobs. I think we have things that will take a lot of money that maybe will create 5 or 6 jobs, and we need to be looking at things that will create the jobs.
Thank you.
You know, there's a lot of things I think can be done, but just to kind of put some things in a nutshell, I think we have to provide a more favorable climate. The attitude, you hear stories about our state not being very business friendly, regulations, taxes, and so on and so on. Those are not as friendly as they could be to businesses to incentivize them to come in. We've got this paid leave thing that's coming up before us now at a time when we're strapping businesses with the taxation and the Affordable Health Care Act and the increase of the gross receipt tax that actually taxes businesses. It's not a sales tax for consumers, but it's passed on to them, of course. But on the other hand, we could also sell the idea that our state, our weather is great, okay? We just don't experience the calamities that we see happening in other parts of our country. That's an awfully big incentive, I think.
In our second question on the economy, you'll have a chance to talk more about this beyond incentives. The next question, Chuck, what should the state legislature do to improve the economy in New Mexico?
Well, I think manufacturing, we look around and we see we just don't manufacture things anymore. And I think we need to really push hard on supporting manufacturing in our state and across the land for that matter as well too. We're just making everything abroad. And that provides manufacturing is the base industry from which all other businesses spring from, I think. There are others are service kinds of things. So that's a big one as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, Mary Kay.
Okay, thank you. I think that we do need to create jobs, and I think that in looking at what we want to do to create the jobs, I'm on the Jobs Council, and we're looking at people doing solo work, which I think is a great thing for them. I agree with Mr. Wendler on manufacturing is a great thing. I think as we're looking down at Santa Teresa and bringing in the jobs and the industry that we're bringing in down there, I think is a great thing. I think probably in New Mexico that Santa Teresa is doing more than almost anywhere else in the state in creating jobs and bringing them in. We also need to have a qualified workforce, a trained workforce. So many of the people coming in complain about not having a qualified and trained workforce. So I think that's something that we need to do. I know that Donniana Branch is also looking at, and they are working to bring in more jobs and training there.
Mary Kay, let's turn to education. Do you support universal preschool education? And if so, how would you bring it about?
Well, I do support preschool education, and universal, I guess you mean by having it available to anybody who wants to send their child there. I think that early staging in a child's life are setting the groundwork for them to be successful in life. And so I do believe that early pre-K and having it universal is a good thing. Of course, we need to come up with the dollars to be able to support that, which I think is very important. But I think it's giving children that groundwork and that beginning start that they have, that we want them to be successful as they move on up through the grades.
Early childhood, I was blessed with the opportunity to have been a principal of a elementary school where we had pre-K through the 4th grade with over 1,400 students. So I've experienced that firsthand. So yes, I think education, we've got to push that. As I said, I was a professional educator. But I think what we need to do is we need to ask ourselves the question, what are we doing with those kids? Are we just letting them, are we teaching academics at that time? Are we getting them conditioned to where they are going to be expected to do certain things later on, prepare for a job? Or I think you should be able to ask a young kid, kindergarten students. We had 12 full-time kindergarten teachers in my campus. And we'd ask them, what do you plan on doing when you grow up? And kids need to understand that they have expectations. Okay, so yeah, it's a good thing. But again, what are we doing at that age?
Okay. We move on to the next question, and we begin with you, Chuck. How would you improve access to health care, especially mental health care, in the state?
Well, as I understand the healthcare system, I think we have over 300 healthcare providers throughout the United States, okay, insurance companies, if you will. States are limited as to how many they allow to practice in their state. I know we had, 2 at one time, maybe there's 3 now, I haven't kept up with that. So I think if you use a free enterprise market-based system, allow more people to participate in the marketplace instead of eliminating people. And going to a single payer system and this kind of thing isn't the way to do it. And I'm just borrowing upon the principles that our Constitution established, and it worked for a long time. Of course, you get people that get greedy, and corruption and this and that plays into that mix. Okay.
I believe that we need to bring in more providers who have the knowledge and the skills. We don't have like the psychiatrists here in Donniana County. I believe the La Clinica's brought in 2 psychiatrists. The majority of our psychiatrists are in Albuquerque and up there. I think that we need to have access to for people to be provided the services that are needed to be able to deal with the mental health. We just had the Domenici conference, which was very successful. and talked about a lot of this. It's very important. I know we closed the Turquoise Lodge in Albuquerque, so young people who are on drugs, that program has been closed down. We need to be dealing with kids who are on drugs, meth, cocaine, all of those different things. But we need to have the programs, and we need to have the access to the programs.
Okay, next question is about water. How would you allocate increasingly scarce water resources?
Oh, wow. Well, I think that, for one thing, I think agriculture takes a huge amount of water, and of course we're an agricultural area. I think that we need to allot those resources in a way that we certainly have to have the food and we have to have the agriculture. But I think as our municipalities grow, their appetite for more and more water is certainly out there. And I think we have to do it in a fair way. I think we were talking today in committee about monitoring water and the amount of water that people are be able to use. And I think we need to put in more systems where we are using a better system of using water, conserving water. I think that is a big portion for us to do. But I think the water is appropriated out, and I don't think the cities at this time are appropriating so much water per household, but we certainly appropriate it to the farmers in a certain levels of how much they can use per crop. And but I think we're certainly going to have to do that. That's a big thing for us, and we're not going to expand if we don't have water.
Allocating water, it's very specific rather than just using water or so and so on, but allocating it, I think one of the things is that they go back to the earliest records, who used the water first, who actually owned the land, and so on. I know there's a spring up around Tularosa in 1907. It goes way back. So it's a matter of first priority use. Who had it first, okay? Possession. For allocation, there are other water measures that are being worked on. I know that they've talked about rotating, having farmers, and farmers aren't going to like this very well, but this is what's being talked about, and we get in a real pinch, and that is to take your field out of production, okay, and allow someone else to produce and to alternate in that fashion. So if you're going to allocate water on that basis, yeah, someone's not going to get the water one year and another person is the next year. So again, allocating water.
Okay. Chuck, another question relating to the environment, but this is also a big economic question. Should the state promote renewable energy? If so, how?
Well, obviously we should promote it. We need to be looking to the future. We need to be proactive in this regard, our energy needs. You can't just continue with our fossil fuels. That's been discussed about quite a little bit. We need to get into wind and solar and sun. We for a while had atomic energy and so on. I know up around Grants, I worked up there when uranium mining was really booming pretty big. So New Mexico's been blessed. We're energy rich. We're exporters of energy. I think we're about 11th in solar, 5th in solar, and 11th in wind. So maybe we can use our energy exportation and buy some water from some folks. I don't know. Okay, allocating water, but that is a big issue. We need to work on renewable energies. Okay.
I think that many of the schools I know in Santa Fe, for instance, that they're doing a lot of solar. You'll see parking sheds, and then on top of the parking sheds, they're putting solar. And I think that that certainly is a good thing, and that we're looking at that across the state. El Paso Electric, I know, has put out some fields for solar panels that are over toward Deming. And looking at that, I think that we should use all of our energy sources. We have oil, we have gas, we have wind, we have solar. We need to be doing all of that, and renewable energy is certainly plays a big part in all of that. I think we should be, our vehicles, we can be using natural gas for vehicles, and that's a big supportive thing. I know in California a lot of the buses run on natural gas. So I think that we should be looking at all the different ways that we can use our natural resources.
Okay, now let's talk about health. What is the future of the Affordable Care Act in New Mexico? What are your concerns about its funding?
Well, right now, you know, you keep hearing we're going to take away the Affordable Care Act, or we're going to keep it. I think the funding source, I think, is we're looking at how we're going to fund things from, you know, Medicaid on down the line. The costs seem to keep going up. And so we need to make sure that what we're going to do, that we are set it up in such a way that people can go to the doctors that they need to go to, and that they're able to get the access to care when they need it. I know so many people, I have friends who live in Canada who say, you know, to get something done may take a year. You can get it done, but it'll take you a year to get it done. I think we need to be sure that that the Affordable Care Act, that we have the physicians and the health care providers to be able to provide the health care in a timely manner and in an affordable manner. I think that's very important for us to be able to do that.
Affordable Care Act, it's in big trouble, folks. We know that. You hear a lot of statistics on that. There's a big budget gap with them. In fact, the president has just recently written a letter to some of the major companies asking them for help and asking them, please don't leave us, because some of them have left and others are threatening to do so because they can't afford to do it. Costs are rising. You're not having the youth participate in the numbers that they had wanted to participate. The young are young, they don't need it and they don't want it. And besides that, it should never have been put into place to begin with. I recall that there were polls taken before that was passed, and if I remember, it was at least 70% or more on various polls that said that the American people didn't want it. And so the government's taking control of a sixth of our economy through the health care, and they're dictating to us what we're going to do. And it's just unconstitutional, okay?
Chuck, next question, beginning with you. Would you be in favor of public financing for all state elections? Yes or no, and why?
I think we need to do something about this financing. If you look at it, it's follow the money. Money has been influencing the elections for a long time. I mean, even me, for example, I'm pretty much funding my own campaign. I've accepted some contributions, bless the people's hearts for doing so. But you know, I think really that there's a significant number of people that would provide excellent leadership for us here if they were to run, but they don't run because of the money thing. They don't like to go out and ask for money, and they don't like to be subjected to the scrutiny that they are, and so on and so on. But this money thing is just getting completely out of hand. So I don't know how you would do that to fund it publicly, but I think there should be a limit. I think candidates in certain positions are to be given a flat amount of money, or I shouldn't say given. I think they should use a certain amount of money. There should be a cap on that, and each one of those candidates get that amount of money, and it's up to them to decide how to best use it.
Okay, and Mary Kay, I'll ask the question again because it's very specific. Would you be in favor of public financing for all state elections? Yes or no, and why?
Yes, and I believe that. I think, again, there is so much money that is put into campaigns that I think public financing would level the playing field. And again, I think that there are people who are qualified to run for office who might not be running for office because they feel they don't have the finances to do that. So if we had public financing, it would level that playing field, and I think many more people might be able to run, and I think it would be a good thing.
Okay, this is kind of a longer question. For years, New Mexico has ranked at or near the bottom of every national quality of life survey, and it doesn't seem to matter who's in office. Those results never seem to budge. Why do you think we're always on the bottom among the states, and what do you think we can do to change that?
You know, I guess I don't really know exactly why we're at the bottom of everything. I know that we put so much money, like in education, we put so much money into our education system than most other states, and yet we stay at the bottom. We're at the bottom of many things, and I think that we need to reevaluate our tax structure so that we're looking at the kinds of money that we're spending and where are we spending those dollars, and to make sure that those dollars are going into the best system that we have. That's also attracting businesses with bringing in jobs and that sort of thing. But I think that it seems that we are at the bottom of so many different things. And New Mexico is a beautiful state. We have so much to offer people that it is something that many times baffles me, and I don't think that it's always money that makes a difference. I do think that maybe this New Mexico True program that they're running right now makes a huge difference on people seeing New Mexico, the beauty of New Mexico and what we have to offer, bringing people here. But we cannot continue to be at the bottom of so many different things.
I think, there's a composite of factors that play in that, obviously. I don't think there's a panacea there, but I think in the bottom it's jobs. I think when people have jobs, then families can function a little bit more with less stress. Finances plays an awful big part in the stability of a family. And in families, what's happened to families? They've eroded. We have single parents more and more, not just women, but men too. We have kids that are not knowing just what the value system really is in our country. We've got our state that has been cited for corruption and cronyism. I mean, we rank at the bottom of that. What kind of leadership are we providing for our youth, for our adults, and for businesses that want to be attracted here, the right to work thing? The list goes on, okay?
All right, Chuck, this question, again, and we should remind all of our viewers, all of these questions were submitted by the public to our feedback email address or through note cards in studio. It's a rather long question, but it's a good one because it's a follow-up to a question that we had earlier. It doesn't appear that the monopoly electric utilities are being adequately regulated by our PRC because they are still stubbornly refusing to make the needed transition away from traditional fuels toward renewable energy, which we have in abundance. What policy changes would you propose and implement to address the twin problems of climate and economic crisis?
Well, climate change, I know that's been bandied about quite a little bit, and I'm a former science and math teacher. I have serious concerns about the validity of climate change. Sure, climate is cyclic, it always has been. Where are we at in that cycle now? Hey, I don't know. We need to press onward. We need to prepare for the future. That's true, okay? But I'm just one of those. I'm very optimistic about things, okay? And I think things will swing around. So if people will just have a little faith, that's what our forefathers went through, a matter of faith and hard work, and we'll see our way through on it.
Mary Kay.
Thank you. Well, I believe that we have said that there has to be a certain percentage of renewable energy in our utility companies. And I think many of them are working toward that. Do we need to include more of that into what we require utilities to do? Possibly we need to do that. I think we have an abundance, as I said before, of oil and gas and wind and solar and all the things that we have. And I think as we see more and more of this happening, I know New Mexico Finance Authority is even moving forward with a lot of renewable energy and offering subsidies to people to get into the program. New Mexico has also subsidized people who put solar on their homes and in businesses. So I think we need to continue to do that, but not just subsidies. I think as we see that the equipment is better and it's more usable and we're getting returns on that, I think we'll have more people going to renewable energy.
Okay, one more question.
One more, that's it. I would like to go to a question submitted by someone from our audience. Would you support New Mexico setting its own health care plan, such as the Health Security for New Mexicans, to alleviate the rising costs and shrinking provider networks?
In the past, I have not supported the Health Security Act. I feel that the private business is a better place for us to be looking at the health and not just everything under the government. And I think that we should be looking at what we're going to do in bringing in more healthcare providers. I think we've got the Burrell School who's going to bring in more healthcare providers for us. And I think that we do have many good companies that are out there. I think they're regulated, and I think they should be regulated in what they're doing, and they are also being regulated in the costs that they're receiving for the services that they're giving.
I think I kind of answered that question earlier on when I said that there are over 300 insurance providers throughout our country, and to open up the market is just like the energy question you asked me earlier. Open it up to free market. It's cost driven. Free market system works well. People know what it is they want. We need to continue providing what it is that they're really asking for as best we can, and let private business answer. You know, we've been very innovative in the past. I mean, our history reflects that all the way along. When there's a crisis, give it to the private sector. Let them go with it. Government can go ahead and provide some certain kinds of incentives, but don't get involved in picking winners. And that's what the government does, unfortunately. So put out some incentives, yes, offer prizes, but make sure that they're actually working, they're in place, okay? And go with that.
Charles Wendler, Mary Kay Papen, thank you so much for spending time with us and participating in this forum.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
invitation.
And on
Appreciate
behalf
it.
of the League of Women Voters, we thank you very much for coming, and we thank everyone who submitted a question. Please submit more questions.
That's
Thank
right. You can do that by email. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. And we also want to thank all of our members of public media. Without your support, in-depth journalism in our community would not be possible. So thank you. And you can donate online at krwg.org. Have a great week.